All right, you ready?
I am.
We'll get started. All right. Welcome to the Mixed Dandelions podcast, where we talk about being mixed, military, and moving on. So today I have on a special guest who's actually an old friend of my husband's, Dr. Britten Cole. How are you?
Excellent. How are you, Jennifer?
Good, thank you. So thanks for coming on. Why don't we just start talking about, introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Britten Cole. I am from the south side of Chicago, where, in fact, I met Jennifer's husband. We were old friends. My first job was at Corner Bakery, and that's where I met Manny.
Yes.
And everyone thought we were brother and sister, and we just remained
really?
friends. They did. Yeah, because, since I'm mixed, I look Puerto Rican, and he's Puerto Rican, and so everyone just assumed that we were brother and sister. So we would always like, yeah, that's my brother.
Yeah, I can see him just going with it.
Oh yeah, we just went with it. But we stayed friends for, oh my God, is it 30 something years?
It's been a while.
So let's see. After my stint in Chicago, I went away to college, eventually became a physician. I'm an anesthesiologist. And in order to pay for medical school, joined the military. I joined the Navy. And so after I finished all of my training as an anesthesiologist, I had to go into active duty with the military. And that's where I was stationed in Bethesda for 4 years. I deployed to Iraq for about 7 months. That was in 2008. And then after the military, I got married, had some kids, moved to Florida, and now I'm in California, just kind of living.
Yeah.
I'm starting businesses and trying to be an entrepreneur and all types.
So we'll mention the shirt as we were talking about. This is one of your shirts that people can find on TeePublic, right? That's where I got this.
That is from. So another friend of mine, Dr. Kendra. So we call ourselves Dr. Ken and 10, which is the KT. We have a YouTube channel where we just kind of discuss life, current events, or, what's going on in our homes, and, what are we afraid of? What are we looking forward to? What, just everything. We just talk about life. And, that's where our YouTube channel started, and that's kind of where it is. And so we have t-shirts, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Love it. All right. So let's get into it. So what is your racial and ethnic background? And then how do you self-identify racially and or ethnically?
Okay, so my mom is Black. She was born in Mississippi and moved to Chicago maybe when she was a year old. My dad is Polish, and he's probably about third generation American Polish. I think I don't know which parent, both parents are Polish. I can't remember how far from off the boat they are, but that's the background. In terms of how I identify, I've always identified as Black. I never even said I was mixed. So if anyone ever asked me what I was just like, Black. Isn't it obvious? Obviously it's not, right? But I would always just say I was Black, mostly because my parents divorced when I was very young. I have no memories of them together. So I don't know if I was 3, 4, 5. I can't remember. But I grew up with my mom. And so my entire family was Black. Our neighborhoods were Black. Our schools were Black. So I didn't really think I was anything else. I knew my dad looked different. I knew I guess he was white, and I didn't really, he remarried very early to another Black woman. She was one of 15 kids. So she had this huge family, and everybody was Black. So I only knew about the culture of being Black. Right. I didn't really know anything else. I didn't even understand what is mixed. What is that? I don't even know what that means. I just know I'm Black. So that's how I identify. But, growing up, everyone around me told me I wasn't, right? So my family never said anything. My family was just like, nothing's wrong. She's just like us. They never said a word. But, it was other kids that would remind me, oh, you're a white girl. Oh, you're a white girl. And I didn't even think that was a thing. I didn't even know that was a bad thing, except that they were saying it to be mean. So I was like, oh, okay, that must be a bad thing. Being white must be bad. So, I grew up just getting into a lot of fights, a lot of arguments, a lot of fights and a lot of fights, just because I was like, no, I'm not a white girl, whatever that is. I'm not, I'm Black. So that's kind of, I identified as Black, but I guess the world around me was like, nah, I don't think you are. And then it wasn't until I got older where it was like, I appreciate what I look like now. I didn't when I was younger. And even now that I'm older and I've had friends for a long time, it's funny because if anyone says anything outside of our group, like, oh, is she black? And they're like, oh, she's the blackest black girl you will ever meet. She blacker than all of us. And I guess they say that because, I had to do so much. Like I had to defend myself so much. I had to fight so much. I was always like the roughest or the mouthiest of the group. And so it's funny, like they'll laugh and like, oh no, she blacker than all of us. So that was always a running joke with my friends.
Almost like you had to prove something, right?
Yeah,
More than other people.
For sure. I think, kids in general have to prove something, right? Like mine was all about my ethnicity. So, whatever that meant to a bunch of kids, I had to prove that, no, I am who I am. And it wasn't like you can prove that you're black, but I guess they just wanted, I don't know what the psyche of a kid is. I can't really remember, but I guess, they wanted to know, like, okay, well, how far are you willing to take this? Like, if you say you black, okay, well, what you gonna do? You're gonna defend it? What you gonna do? So I guess that was the psyche of a kid. And it was like, whatever I say is what I said. And if you don't like it, then we can fight about it or whatever stupid thing we did. But you had to prove, which was stupid because there's no way to prove it. But
I know. And it's funny, like with kids, because like a lot of times we don't know, like at certain ages, we don't know what those things mean. But when we hear it, we know people are saying it in a mean way and not to be nice. And I remember like the first time I heard the N-word, like I didn't know what it meant, but somebody called my friend that word. And I could just tell like how she felt when she heard it and that he was being mean and not nice. And I hit him and pushed him and yelled at him. And then I went home and I told my mom and I was like, well, what does, the N-word mean? And she smacked me and I've never said the word again. Like, because I remember when she smacked me, I was like, I'm just asking what it means.
I don't even know what it is.
I was like, I don't know what it means. But, when my friend, somebody called her that and she looked really sad and upset and he sounded mean. So I pushed him back and she was just like, okay, but don't ever say that word again. I was like, am I in trouble for pushing him? And she's like, no.
And it's funny too, because my mom, I used to always get into fights and stuff. And she had this one word where if I said it, I knew I wasn't going to be in trouble. All I said was, they provoked me. I don't even think I knew what provoked meant, but I knew if I said it, she would say, oh, they must've been talking about her color. Like, okay, fine. Then yeah, that's fine. You got into a fight. Did you beat their ass? Okay, fine. Like she was okay with it then. So I would always be like, Mom, they provoked me. They provoked. They did. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then you're like, okay, yeah, now I know what I can get away with.
Exactly. Now I was like, okay, now I know what to say. No matter what the reason is I'm fighting, it's going to be because they provoked me.
They provoked me. You don't need to know how they provoked me.
I wouldn't go that far, but exactly. Yeah, they provoked me. It was their fault.
Oh, funny. So do you have siblings?
I do. I have an older brother. He's about 2 years older.
So then is his, I guess, like complexion, like did he have to sort of, I guess, deal with the same things?
I'm sure he did. He kind of looks like he looks a little bit more ethnic than me, but not by very much. I mean, I would say because he wore a curly afro that people probably assumed that he was, But my hair was longer and pulled back, so you couldn't really tell like what is she. And he probably had a little bit more color to him, but I don't know that he didn't really get into a lot of fights. So I don't know. And he was kind of a funny guy. So like, I always thought when we were growing up, if anything happened, he kind of joked his way out of it, or he would say something to make fun of that person and everybody would laugh at that person.
Yeah.
So I think that's how he dealt with it. Like I didn't know how to tell jokes. I wasn't funny. So I was just like, let's fight. We're just going to fight. But he was more like, if someone said something to him, he'd be like, oh, so okay, well, what about? And then he would say something and then everybody would start laughing at that other kid. So I think that's kind of how, I think that's how he navigated it. Cause he never really got into any fights growing up. He was kind of like just a chill kid. So if he did experience anything, he certainly wouldn't tell his younger sister, but, I never really saw him get into anything that was like racially motivated or like someone making fun of the fact that he's light. I don't know what his experience. We never really talked about it.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like my sisters and I, because I mean, I'm one of five. And so, like, and I'm the fourth out of five. But like now that I'm older, and then I started this, like my little sister and I would talk about it a little bit just because, when as we were moving around, like it was her and I in the last like duty station. But, like I often wonder, like my older sisters, and I know a little bit with my brother too, because we're all 3 years apart. So, the older sisters were born in 1970. And so like they've like dealt with different things, I'm sure. And then or even like talking to my mom about things. It's interesting because like she's darker, she's brown, like I guess more brown because she comes from an island. And so she's got that darker skin and she can pass as being like Hispanic. And she said that like, people will ask her, or even like with the Asian hate, people would ask me, oh, aren't you worried about your mom? And I was like, honestly, people probably assume she's something other than Asian because her skin is darker. And she said that one time in the 70s, I think they were stationed somewhere in the South, and someone asked her if she was mixed with Black. And she's like, no. And they're like, oh, because your skin is kind of darker. And she's like, well, what if I was? Like,
doesn't matter. Yeah.
I know. And they're like, oh, well, we were just wondering. And so, but like to listen and to like hear, I guess, like the differences in siblings and how they, or even like with the military stuff and those differences in growing up, and you don't think about when you're younger. And then those are all just things that I wonder now, like, oh, well, what were your experiences and opinions about it?
Yeah, I never asked him as adults. We never really talked about it. I guess now that we're adults, maybe I should ask him, like, did you have to go through anything? I mean, I really don't know. But I think too, like your older sisters, they were born like 1970. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like that's a totally different
generation.
Decade. Yeah. So like how they grew up is probably totally different than me and my brother who were at the end of the 70s. You know what I mean? Because I can imagine then it was probably rough too.
Yeah.
If not worse. I mean, because I would imagine the further back you go, the harder it was to be a mixed kid.
And then I'm not even sure like where they were. I know they were stationed like in Wisconsin at some point, but before that, I'm not sure. They were born in Guam. So I'm not sure of all the like places in and it does depend a lot on where you live and the perceptions that you have and the attitudes towards you. So no, that's something like it's something like that I think about more now that we're adults, and like my mom, they'll open up a little bit more and tell you things that they would never have told you when you were a kid. So I was just like, I wonder, like the differences in our experiences with a lot.
Yeah, even like the prejudices with our parents, like being an interracial couple. I know for my mom, it wasn't. She told me once before, like, I don't, it wasn't very easy. And I think, I don't think she was allowed in my father's parents' home because she was Black. I mean, I remember her telling me that, that because they didn't, I guess they didn't accept it.
Those are all interesting things because even my mom said that like on some of the military bases in the 70s that like it was still a bit segregated, and you would have like families of color on one side and then white families on the other side or something, like where the housing placements were, or like kids playing, like there were still a lot of families that wouldn't allow certain kids the kids could play together outside, but they were not allowed in their homes because of their race or ethnicity. And I was just like those are all things that like start to like I start thinking about, like, and I'm trying to remember like growing up, like do I remember experiencing certain things? And so it's all like interesting to me, things to like look back, and it's like, well, I'm glad that it's changed and it's grown a lot more.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, things are so much more accepting. I mean, the way we think is so, I mean, but don't get me wrong, it's still, the funny thing is it's still there. Yes. We're more open to talk about it, but I mean, people are still just as
and fight against it, I guess, too.
I don't want to say not even racist, but just like, they have their biases and their stereotypes and just don't want to conform to like, it's like coming together or allowing people to be who they are and be friends with or date whoever. I mean, it's just really crazy that people care that much.
Yeah. So you were in the Navy. So what, like 5-6 years you were in the Navy?
It was 4 years. So they paid for medical school. So I owed them a year for a year that they paid. So 4 years med school. I served in the Navy for 4 years. And that was
Okay.
all in Bethesda, Maryland.
Oh, wow. So you didn't, you weren't on a boat at all, or just, it was just in Maryland and then
Girl,
Iraq?
listen, I was like, they better not send me on no damn boat. I am not getting on a boat. No way. No, I didn't have to go on a boat. Thank you, Jesus. But I did go to Iraq, and that was for about 7 months. So in the middle of my 4 year stint, I went to, I say it like it was a prison sentence, my 4 year stint. I had to go to Iraq for I think it was 7 months.
So what made you choose Navy?
Oh, well, so this was my logic. I figured that because the Navy is water, I'll always be near a beach. So the locations that they send me have to be beautiful. They won't be in the middle of nowhere. They'll always be nice locations. I thought that was very logical. It made the most sense.
When you're that age.
Army, Navy, Air Force. Because, the Navy, the Army, they are always in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
The Air Force,
you never know.
too, because they need a lot of land to land planes. And I was like, I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere, get stationed in like some random, nobody's heard of place. I was like, nah, Navy's got to be near water. So there'll always be a beach nearby, which means it has to be a nice spot. And that's how I chose it.
I'll be honest, I've never heard that reason.
Listen, that was my logic at the time. Okay. I was
Unless people
18?
just aren't being truthful.
I was 18 years old. What did I know? I was like,
I
I'm not 18, 20, 21, something like that. 20, 21. I had no clue. I was like, how do you choose? Like the uniforms? I'm all like doing the girly way. Like, what do the uniforms look like? Okay. They're all ugly. What about I was picking at anything. I was like, I don't know how to choose which branch to join. So I was like, listen, Navy, water, beach, it has to be nice. Let's just go with the locations.
Oh, how funny.
And I think it worked out because I don't think there's any bad places you can get stationed if you're in the Navy, unless of course there's a war and you get sent to Iraq. So
yes. So what was that like when you were in Iraq? You were there for 7 months, medical.
Yeah, it was, wow. There was some good stuff there. There was a lot of terrible stuff. Some of my friends, they're still my friends from the military as well that I deployed with. It's just a different beast when you go to war. Like, I don't think anybody comes back the same. I think you have a different outlook on life and appreciation for life and what you have here in America. I think that was the biggest thing. When I went to Iraq and coming back, I remember being angry at how, entitled we were here in America, how we take everything for granted, how we have all this stuff, and we don't even care about it. Like, we just treat it like, it's insignificant, where people in other countries, like, they grow up with bombs going off at the end of their street, if not on top of their houses. Right. And it was just such a totally different way of living. Like, I remember talking to, we were taking care of a patient, an Iraqi patient, and there was a interpreter, and she was interpreting, and she was like, oh yeah, they bombed her house, her village. And that's why she was here. I think she was burned. I can't remember what it was. But I remember the interpreter, as she's telling me what this lady is saying, she's like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah, no, they bombed my house too. Go on. And she just said it like
all nonchalant, normal.
It was just so, and I just imagine if you imagine a bomb going off on the south side of Chicago, like, we wouldn't know what to do. But like, that's their everyday life. And I just remember thinking, like, I can't stand you people. Everybody is just so entitled. You don't even know what you have. You don't appreciate it. And then eventually you get over that anger when you settle back into society. But that was probably one of the biggest things I remember, like, coming back, like, God, we just have it so good here. And we sit and we look at Instagram and talk about the way people look and just stupid stuff. Who cares? There's so many other important things going on in this world. And this is what we care about, what Kim Kardashian is wearing. I don't know. I think that was probably the biggest. Obviously, she wasn't a thing back then, but my point is, we had our priorities all messed up.
Yes. And it's
coming from a place where they don't have really anything.
Well, so you guys had to, you cared for civilians and the local civilians and military? Oh, wow.
So we cared for so I was in a few different places. I started off on a base, Al Taqaddum, and that was essentially just taking care of all of the military personnel. So if they were out and they got bombed or shot, they came to us, we had to patch them up, and then we shipped them out to like Balad or another place that could stabilize them a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
So we got, basically fresh off the fighting grounds, right? Like they
Oh,
came,
wow.
however many miles away they were from us, they brought them in. We had to hurry up and, stop the bleeding and, patch them up. We had to do whatever to save their lives. And then we would ship them out. But then I also went to Baghdad, and Baghdad was a real hospital. So when I was in TQ, which is Al Taqaddum, it was literally like, those hangar type airport kind of things. So it was one of those old hangars. We just put walls on it and turned it into like a makeshift hospital. With a couple, operating rooms and a little ER area, but, it wasn't like a real hospital. So when I went to Baghdad, it was actually a hospital that we took from the Iraqis. So at that place, we took care of pretty much everybody. I mean, we even had prisoners of war that I had to do surgery on. So I remember one surgery we did, we brought them in blindfolded, and I had to put them to sleep, and they did surgery. And I don't even remember what surgery it was, but I remember like, it was kind of funny, like everybody looking at me, and I felt like they were looking at me like, now, if something happens, we're not going to say a word. I felt like everybody was looking at me like that. And I was kind of like, this is too much power to have. I don't know what to do. But of course, we took care of him just like if he were an American.
Wow.
And then we also had just regular Iraqi civilians. We had children, we had adults, people that, if their villages were burned and they were burned, we had a whole burn unit. So it wasn't just American military at that hospital. In Baghdad, we took care of pretty much everybody.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. I didn't realize all that. So how was it? I guess that's like a big thing that I guess come off of. But so how do you think it was different? Like, what were some things, I guess, when you joined the Navy and you went to Maryland? How was it different after you joined compared to living in Chicago?
Well, see, these are two totally different times, right? I was, a kid in Chicago, an adult in Maryland. So my pay grade had gone way up. So you got to put a little respect on my name now. I mean, you can't just treat me like any old body. So things were a little different in Maryland just because, I was older, I was more established. Are we talking about military or just like in Maryland?
No, military. Or I guess military, even like Maryland too, like, because I mean, yeah,
I didn't really have too much of an outside experience with Maryland, but like in the military, like because I was an officer, like you have to respect me, right? Like even if you don't want to. So because I'm also a woman, right? Totally outnumbered in the military. Like there's so many men. So, and I think in general, men don't really respect the authority of women sometimes in the as you climb the ladder. They think that she don't know what she's talking about. What does she know? That kind of thing. So, even though I did have a title, I was an officer. I think there are still times where people at my level, men, would try to challenge me. And little did they know I was from Chicago and I already had a chip on my shoulder. So I was ready to like pounce on anybody. So any little thing, I was always like in people's faces, like what? And like, I was just always very aggressive, which I mean, I think served me well only because one, I'm a woman. So, there's only so much a man is going to be like, all right, okay. Like they're not going to be really, they're not going to be like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Intimidated. They won't be intimidated by me because I'm a woman, but they do respect me because I stand up for myself. So I guess that's kind of how it worked to my advantage. It wasn't like, I'm gonna be afraid of this. She's still a woman, but she's not gonna take my shit. Okay, so I guess I have to treat her with the same respect I would treat this guy next to me. So I think once I got into the military, it wasn't as much about my race or ethnicity as it was about my sex. I think that was probably the biggest switch because I mean, to be honest, no one even knew I was Black.
Right.
So like at this point, once I transitioned from being a kid to an adult, I kind of moved into a world, and this is, I guess, I don't know, different, unique. I don't know. I transitioned into a world where I was passing for white. So I didn't have a lot of the struggles that I had as a kid growing up being different, right? Because now everyone just saw me as this white lady with an attitude. God damn, she got an attitude, right? Like, but they didn't get it. Now, obviously, some people knew I was Black, and they knew, like, okay, she's a Black girl from the South Side, got a chip on her. So, like, they kind of knew my backstory, but that's only if I told you. And most people, I'm not going to tell you all that stuff. So I think in general, I just kind of moved through the world as a white woman. And now, looking the way I do, I'm happy that I look this way. When I was a kid, I hated it. I wanted to look like my mom and my family. I didn't want to be this light. I didn't want hair like this. But now that I'm an adult, and it's almost hard to say it, but now it's paying off. And some people have been like, well, why is that a good thing? Like, how dare you? And I'm like, well, listen, now I'm like a spy. I'm like a fly on the wall, right? Like, I'm infiltrating the system because they think I'm white. So, like, I can hear conversations that I wouldn't normally hear. I can interject my opinion without people assuming, well, because she's Black, she thinks that way. And so maybe they'll listen to what I have to say because they think I'm white, right? Like, they can. So, like, now my color, my look has been a benefit as an adult. It wasn't like that as a child, but now it is. And now, shit, I'm grateful. I'm like, thank you. Thank God I look the way I look, because now I can, like I said, kind of move through the world. And, I always say, like, whenever you don't like something, like, it's one thing to try to change it from outside, but I think it's better when you try to change it from the inside, right? When you infiltrate the system and kind of move through that community or whatever, the business or the institution, whatever it is, when you move through that institution as one of them, and you slowly start to say things that now they're going to start to believe, well, then you're changing the system from within. So I kind of, that's how it's been since, I became an adult, since I entered the workforce. I mean, now I say what I have to say, which I would have done anyway. But I think people, and I hate to say it, but it's true, people listen to me. Right. And they don't listen to me with like that bias, like, okay, well, we're expecting you to say that because you're a Black person, or, you know what I mean? Like, they listen like as if I'm just one of them. And so to me, that's a benefit, because, maybe I can change the way somebody thinks about something, or not even change it, but give them a different perspective that they didn't think about before. And it makes them think. Like, as long as you're thinking, like, think about it. Like, don't just jump on a bandwagon and say you agree with this person without listening to both sides, because there's always a different vantage point that you can see something from. So, in the military, like I said, I really didn't notice much of any issues with ethnicity, because no one knew what I was, but more of like kind of just being a woman. So that was probably the biggest thing in the military, was more of being a woman. And I mean, standing up for myself is not difficult at all. Like, I can do that shit all day. So, I probably had a reputation at that place. Like, I was always stepping in somebody's butt about something, because I didn't take anything from anybody. But it also, people respected me, and, they were like, okay, she's tough. She can handle herself. She knows how to, deal with certain situations, or if she's in a tight situation, she'll be able to get out of it. Like, people had a lot of faith in me because of this mouth, because I was just so like I would have so much to say. But in terms of ethnicity, I mean, there was not much of a challenge there. Now I have a lot of friends that did know what my ethnicity was. And, with them in the military, it wasn't really an issue. I mean, we would talk about, like, everybody in the military is, from what I can, not everybody, but a lot of people are Republican.
Right.
And in general, Black people are Democrats. So me and one of my very good friends, he's still one of my very good friends today, we would always go back and forth about Republican, Democrat, Black, white. And it didn't bother us. Like, none of that. So it was just an open dialogue. So even if we disagreed, like, I would still listen to his points, like, damn, that's a good point. And maybe he thought the same way, but I think because we had the dialogue, we were not afraid to say what we wanted. I mean,
yeah,
we spoke freely, like, knowing she's Black, he's white, he's a Republican, and we would go back and forth. And a lot of it turned into comedy. It became to the point where, we would say all this stuff, but it was never like, it wasn't heated. It was always like, we would poke fun. You know how, like, the Daily Show, like, they poke fun at stuff, even though they're tearing it down, they're poking. We would kind of do stuff like that to each other. But I think that was great, because we were able to have a dialogue about it. And some things, like, I do agree with some things that he said, and he did agree with some of the things I said, and that was the beauty of it. But he was like, you know, one of a handful that even knew I was Black.
So then do you remember any moments, like if somebody, I guess, in the, whether in or out of the military, I guess, where they found out that you were Black, and then they were like all of a sudden, like, did their demeanor change, or how they spoke to you, or how they treated you? Do you remember ever happening at all?
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because usually people will find that out like later on down the road where we've already established a relationship or a friendship. And also, sometimes I'm oblivious to what people are doing and saying around me. Like sometimes I kind of move through the world, like not paying attention to people. And that's not really good, but sometimes it is, I guess. So like, you know, I won't even notice that this person is, you know, looking at me sideways or has a sour taste in their mouth because of something I said. I don't even pay attention to it because I'm always kind of doing what I got to do this. I got this to do. I'm not even paying. So sometimes I don't even pay attention, or most times I don't even pay attention to what people are doing around me. But I would say that when people find out, it's usually once we've established a friendship. So I didn't really notice. Now I do notice once Black people know that I'm Black, they get closer to me. Now I've noticed that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like, so especially like in a professional setting, like if I'm, you know, working in a hospital or whatever it is, you know, once they find out, usually they're already suspicious just by the way I talk. You know, people know their tribe, right? Like you know your tribe. So they usually find out pretty early on, maybe within the first couple times that I'm around them, they'll ask, or usually they'll just ask. Black people, they're like, are you Black? You know, they'll ask you. And then after that, y'all are family. Y'all, it's like, that's my, even if, you know, it could be the person that works in the cafeteria. It could be the guy who mops the floor. It could be a surgeon, it doesn't matter who it is. You automatically become family, and they look out for you and you look out for them and you become a lot closer. But I haven't necessarily noticed it in the opposite where people kind of shun me because they find out I'm Black. I haven't really noticed that.
Good. So then when you got out of the military, like, do you think, was that a hard transition for you? Like, what was that like when you got out of the Navy and you were a civilian again and you were an adult? Like, you went to Florida, right? Right after? Or...
Yeah, I went to Florida.
So what was all that transition like?
You know what? It wasn't too bad, only because I worked at a hospital, right? So I wasn't like, and I was the worst military person there was. I didn't follow any directions. I didn't do anything I was supposed to. Like, I was always the rebel. Like, I wasn't supposed to even wear hoop earrings. Okay. I wore them every single day I was there. Right. And every time a new person, like there would be a new person that came in as the new whatever in charge, they would, excuse me, you need, ma'am, those earrings got to come off. I'm like, oh, okay. And then people would be like, just don't. They would tell like,
we've learned to just deal with her.
Don't say anything to this lady. Just let her do what she do. That's Dr. Cole. Just leave her alone. And I had that reputation. I didn't do nothing I was supposed to do. So I was already a terrible, like, I wasn't very disciplined. So to me, being in the military was just like being civilian, and civilian was like, it was all the same thing to me because I didn't listen to anybody anyway. So for me, the transition wasn't too bad. I mean, going to Iraq, okay, I had to follow some rules there, but even then I got in trouble because at one point I stopped carrying my firearm because I was like, this is stupid. I ain't carrying this stupid gun. What am I doing with this? So like I locked it away, and then, oh my God, I don't know, somebody ratted me out. I don't know who it was. And then we had to do like our morning formation. They were like, all right, everybody pull your guns out. And as soon as he said that, my head went down. I was like, you mother, somebody ratted me out. Because of course, they never did that. They never asked.
I was going to ask, like, do they ever do that?
And then they walk right in front of me. So I look up like, yeah, what? No, I don't have it. And what?
Like, we know it's you.
Yep. So yeah, I got in trouble for that. So like throughout the entire experience, somebody was always talking to me about something. I wore braids when I was in Iraq. Oh my God. I got talked to for that. So here's the thing. So, you know, Black people in general, we love our braids, right? Like we love them. That's just what we do. I was in Iraq and I braided my hair, you know, like a bunch of braids just going back. And I remember I don't even know what his title was, but he was in charge of us, called me into the office and he was like, that's not very professional to wear those braids. You're an officer and look what kind of example you're setting. And he went on and on about how I should not have these braids in my head. And I don't remember exactly what I said to him. I don't remember at all. I won't even pretend. But I know when I walked out of that office, I was like, he just don't know who he talking to. I'm gonna wear these braids every damn day until we get back to the United States. And I was so pissed because my hair was so long because I hadn't had it cut. I had to braid my hair almost nightly. I was like, God, my arms are killing me. I wish I didn't have to do it, but I'm gonna do it.
Just out of spite.
Just out of spite. Every single day I had braids on. The entire rest of our time in Iraq, I wore braids.
I didn't know that. Like, I thought it just had to be over, like, at a certain length, like either up or down.
It's supposed to be. So, like, I would braid it.
I didn't think the braids, like, itself mattered if that's how you got it up to that.
Well, I think a couple things. One, it was too ethnic, and I don't think he knew that maybe he didn't know that I was Black. I don't know. I never told him I was or wasn't. I think he thought it was just too ethnic. And I think he thought that only enlisted people, which is where the majority of Black people are, enlisted people would be okay. They can do it. They're enlisted. They're not up here where we are. That's something that they can get away with. Right. So I felt like I wasn't sure if it was like an ethnic thing or a status thing because I was an officer and usually he probably sees young Black girls who are enlisted. He probably sees those girls doing it. So I don't really know what his deal was, but I was just like, you're not going to tell me I can't wear braids. Like, what's your reasoning? What makes it not professional? We're in the middle of a desert. This is probably the best place to wear braids. Like, what are you even talking about? So I was offended on a lot of different levels because I was a Black woman, because I was an officer and he thought that was a class issue. Like there was just so many different levels of my offense. So I was like, you know what? F you. I'm wearing braids until the time I get on that plane and go home. And I hated every minute of it because I had to braid all that hair. I was like, God dang it. But yeah. So and I was like, I mean, did he tell this to all the other girls that braid their hair? Like, I don't know. But
so when you wore things like whether in or out of the military, like, do you ever, because like you said, like you could pass for white and a lot of people do assume that of you, like when you would do something like that with your hair where it was more, quote unquote ethnic or cultural, like did you ever get like flack from other people, saying
Never.
Maybe you were like, no? Oh, that's good then.
Never. No one's ever been bold enough to just walk up to me and say something. I mean, I would be shocked if someone did. And I'm already ready for the argument because I've already replayed an argument in my mind. I love to argue with people. So like every possible argument I could have with somebody about anything, I've already had it in my brain because I love to argue.
Maybe you should have been a lawyer.
I probably should have been. I should have been. But it's funny. I wanted to be a lawyer before a doctor. And I was like, I got to read too much. I can't read all that stuff. No. So I decided
then you start hiring people. That's
true.
And stuff.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that as a kid. But yeah, no one's ever said anything to me directly like, who are you to wear braids but you know what, one person, and this is not about being Black, this is a whole other topic, same idea though. I love sugar skulls, Day of the Dead. So almost every year I do something where I dress in it during that time. And I remember I took pictures of it and posted it on Instagram and somebody,
I remember seeing it. It looked great.
I mean, I think it's the most beautiful. Like
it is.
My phone, the screen on my phone is a Day of the Dead. My suitcase is Day of the Dead. Everything I get is always, I just think it's beautiful. So someone wrote me like, it's not something to wear for Halloween. And then, that whole like, what is it? Misappropriation, whatever the word is. I don't even know. I'm not even smart enough to go down that road. And I wanted to write back, but I was like, you know what? I'm not. But I will tell you in front of whoever's listening and watching, and this is what pissed me off. Like, who are any of us to say you can't wear braids or you can't wear sugar skull mask or makeup? Like, who are you? And if we want a society where we're all inclusive, but then when we try to include you, you got a problem with it because you think so then what do you want? What do you want to be included or do you not want to be included? Because if I'm wearing this because I think it's beautiful, if I'm wearing braids because I think it's beautiful, but why are you telling me not to? But at the same time, you're saying, see me, respect me, include me, appreciate me. But when people do it, oh no, she didn't. Oh, who she thinks she is? Make up your mind, people. Make up your mind. I cannot stand that. Don't tell me I can't wear sugar skull. I will wear it every day of the week if I want to. Every goddamn, I will wear it every day. Just like if I see a woman, a white woman in dreadlocks, who am I to tell you that you can't do that? Especially if I'm, claiming inclusivity and I want, everybody should be equal and you should love my culture and I should love you. Like, then, okay, then get with the program and shut up. Shut up. I'm so sick of people and they love agenda. Shut up. Girl, it bothers me to death. People be saying something. I'm like, can you just please shut up? Just shut up. I can't
my thing is I get annoyed because like there's times where yes, like I just bought a Dia de los Muertos shirt and I was just like, is this gonna are people gonna get on my case? I mean, one, they're gonna assume that I'm Hispanic because I look at that's what they think anyways. I was like, but then if they don't know, are they gonna start getting on my case about it? Or I wanted like a Frida Kahlo mask. I was like, but are people gonna get on my case about it? And I'm like, but then you want, like you said, you want inclusivity, you want equality, you want respect. But then when people you're not willing to do that for other people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you want it for yourself and you're going to fight everybody that maybe is doing it in their own way. They're appreciating your culture by doing this. You weren't making fun. It's nothing you're making fun of or anything like that. But then when it comes to okay, well now can you please respect mine? It's a big deal. It's no, but you need to respect me with it.
Exactly. And it's one thing to wear blackface and make fun of people, right? That's one thing. But when people, dress a certain way, wear their hair a certain way because they love it, they like it, they appreciate it, they find beauty in it, then who are you to say anything? Just shut up. Don't nobody want to hear your raggedy opinion about nothing. You got an opinion about nothing. You mad because I dressed as what part of that are you mad about? I thought it was beautiful. Everyone who saw it thought
beautiful, respectful, appreciative. It's all of those things. Like you said, you're not making fun. You're not trying to be rude or disrespectful or anything like that. But I think people think, nope, it's very black and white, I guess. It's either this way or that way. There's no gray. There's no appreciating it if that's how I'm going to take it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Well said. Exactly, Jennifer. Exactly. I just don't understand some people. And I wanted to fire back at that girl, but I was like, that's too much writing on a text message. My thumb will get tired. I ain't writing this girl back.
Well, because then engaging in it and then it's going to become a back and forth and then it's going to turn into something else and then your words will get twisted and it just wasn't worth it. But yeah, so I don't even know where I was going with that story or why I brought that up. What was I even talking about? That's okay. You can vent. Vent all you want.
I wanted to vent about inclusivity. Okay. If we want to be inclusive, then be inclusive and shut up. Let people be inclusive the way they want to do it.
It goes two ways. It goes both ways. You want equal. It's do you want to be better? Do you want to be treated now better and above everybody else? Or do you want to be equal so that you reciprocate that? That's my thing is the reciprocation. It's okay, well, we're not going to get anywhere if you just want to be in the same position of the people that you're fighting against. You got to be reciprocating and, it's a back and forth kind of thing.
And you know what? I remember when I went to Japan the summer after I graduated college and I was there for about 3 months.
Where'd you go? You were there for 3 months?
I was there for 3 months. I was in Yokohama. I had a family that I stayed with. Masako, if you're out there, I miss you. This was before email and all that stuff. So I don't even know how to get in contact with my family. But anyway, one thing I remember was there was 3 of us that went. We all had a different family. But on Saturdays, the Japanese women would kind of get together at a YMCA or something. I don't know what it was. And they would dress in the traditional garb and all that other stuff and, have tea or do whatever. Well, they dressed us up in the traditional outfits, the kimono and the shoes, the wooden shoes and all that stuff. First of all, it was 50 layers of clothing. I had no clue that much. It was so much. But like, so this goes to the whole, like, you know, wearing braids or, you know, dressing as Day of the Dead. They love their culture so much. They wanted us in it, right?
Yes.
So they dressed us as these little dolls. Now, one was an extremely tall black girl, like chocolate black, right? Then there was another girl who was kind of caramel black girl with, you know, kinky hair. And then there was me, the lightest black girl. So like you had a whole spectrum. The three of us, we had the whole spectrum of black girls. But to these Japanese women, they didn't care. They love their culture, and they wanted us to love it and appreciate it too. Mm-hmm. So they dressed us up as these little geisha looking girls, and they just were like, oh, they were just so tickled and so happy. And they took all these pictures, and they just thought, you know, they were in love with it, and we loved it too. So it goes to that same premise of like, so if I want to dress like that, and the only time I feel like it's a comfortable time to do it is during the Halloween season, because otherwise you look crazy, right? Right. Like that's really the only pass you get, unfortunately. But if I decided I wanted to dress like that again, because I had this experience, this wonderful experience in Japan, where all the Japanese moms were together and they decided to dress us as these little dolls, and they thought we were so cute. And, you know, they took all these pictures and they were so excited. These little American girls are dressed like us. Like what, and if I wanted to do that again, like what would be the problem with that? You know what I mean? Like, and that also goes to experience. Like, you don't know my experience. What if I grew up in Mexico?
I think, yes,
like 10 years of my life, right? Like, what if I grew up in Mexico for 10, even though I'm not Mexican, what if I grew up there for 10 years of my life? And that was what we did culturally every day that I was there.
Like, I think there's an actress that she grew up in Mexico, but it's a Black actress, but grew up in Mexico. And so like I can't remember who it was, but I feel like I read an article about that recently.
But that's my point. Like, everyone has experiences, and you don't know shit about
you don't know their background.
You don't even know. So who are you to tell me I can't dress like that because I am not Mexican or because I am not Japanese? You don't know my history.
My mom, I remember when my daughter was like 3 or 4 years old, I think, and she had gone to Okinawa, Japan, and she came back and she brought home a summer kimono for her. And so she was like, here, she can wear this for Halloween if you don't have a Halloween costume yet. I was like, and she did.
Because really, that's the only time you get to wear stuff. Because if you know what, if you wear something outside of your culture on any given Monday, then people will think you're crazy, or they'll have a problem with it, or they'll have this issue, or they'll have that to say. Even if you do it on Halloween, they still have a problem with it.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm not sure when this is gonna sit in our closet like forever, unless like I was like, we need to get some use out of this. So yes, we I think we even did that with my son, like when we had gone last time, we had gone to Okinawa, and I got him like this cute little outfit. I was like, I think we might just have to do this for Halloween, because it is different. Like, it's different to the people out here. And I feel like with Halloween, that's kind of what you do. You want to be someone different, like for a little bit, right? Look different. This is, like you said, this is your opportunity. This is that chance where you get to dress however you want. And, you know, you can express yourself or express something that you appreciate, where on any given day you can't normally do that.
Right.
So I get it.
Even like I remember we had a nanny in Florida. I don't know if they were Chinese or if her husband, I don't know. I think she was Chinese, but anyway, she went somewhere and brought my kids back, you know, the Chinese outfits. She got a hat with a little braid that was attached to it for my son. And she dressed them up as that and took pictures. Like, is that bad? Like, you know what I mean? Like, people want you in general to accept their culture, right? Like, I think in general, everybody wants their culture to be accepted. So then let them be accepted. Stop trying to stop it because it's not on your terms, because you didn't give permission. Like, who are you?
And I think some people, just in my experience, at least, some people, you know, that do things like that, like they appreciate that you're willing to wear what they've just given you from their home country. It's like when you try to speak their language, sometimes, you know, if you do so in a respectful way, like they appreciate that you are including that, and that you're giving that effort to understand and to, you know, be out of the box a little bit.
Yeah.
So I agree. All right, we digressed a little bit, but
I know
that's okay. That's okay. So we'll finish up. So what was your favorite aspect about being in the military? What was your favorite thing? I mean, the discipline may not have been something, but
girl, that was the least. The fact that I had any kind of authority over me was just not good. I would say the best part of the military, there's two things. One is now being a veteran. I love that I'm a veteran. I'll be throwing my veteran card in everybody's face. Excuse me.
Get
Move
that
out of the way.
10% discount.
Girl, give me my discount. I'm all about that discount. But I'm not lying. I love being a
That was
veteran.
my dad. My dad will be like, do you give a discount?
You know what? And you're part of a club, right? Like, so one thing that I'm able to do with a lot of older patients, because most of them are veterans, is to say, oh, I am too. I was in the Navy. How about you? And then we have this whole conversation. And just like that, they trust me. Just like that, we're friends. You know what I mean? Just like that, I've made a connection with somebody. So I actually like being a veteran because I'm part of, to me, an elite club that not many people are. And there's a shared bond and shared experiences that other people outside of that just won't ever understand, especially if you go to war. But the other thing I think is the friendships. Because again, I think when you are in the trenches with someone literally, and you have nothing but each other to kind of keep you sane, then you build relationships with people that, are unbreakable. And there's a few people from the military who, no matter what, those are my dogs, will always be. Like I said, the one guy, we were what do you call it? Office mates. We shared an office the entire 4 years. We deployed together. Like we were always together. I don't know why, but we literally were always together. He's like my brother, and we talk. We text each other. I don't know, a few days a week, because on one given day we'll text each other 1,000 times about stupid stuff, jokes, all that kind of stuff. But like weekly, it's a weekly thing. We talk to each other. And then, another friend of mine from just the friendships, I think, are probably the other thing about being in the military that I really appreciate, having had the experience to go through. But those are the two things. Discipline are down on the list.
Do you think there's any lessons that you learned while serving in the military that kind of has stuck with you in your life as a civilian?
You know what? Structure and discipline. Believe it or not, structure and discipline. So now, once I went into the civilian world, I guess maybe discipline is on the top of the list. When I went into the civilian world, I became very critical of how things worked because it didn't have enough structure and discipline. And even though I don't like authority, I do like things to be very structured, and I like there to be some sort of an order to it. And so going into the civilian world, I'm always interjecting my opinion in everything. So that's number one. But when I do, it's usually to make sure that, I'm always about efficiency. This is not efficient. Everybody, this is not efficient. We have got to figure out a way. And like, I drive everybody crazy because I'm always like, okay, this is too slow. This doesn't make sense. We need to change. I'm always trying to change something, like, because it's just not efficient. And I would imagine that's probably has a lot to do with being in the military, because you have to follow, like there's order and there's structure, and you follow X, Y, and Z, you know what I mean, to get to the next step. So that's kind of how I am in the civilian world still, because of that, even though I probably didn't appreciate it then. But now I'm very much into efficiency and structure and making sure everything runs appropriately. Even having a hierarchy of, okay, who's in charge? Okay, who's above that person? Who's below that? I need to know everyone's rank. Yeah. Because if there's an issue, I want to know who I need to go to, who I don't need to waste my time.
Chain of command. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to know, like, all that stuff is very important to me in the workforce. So I think I got to give my hats off to the military for something. They did something right. I wouldn't take off these earrings, but they did something right. Okay.
Guess that was the least of their worries.
Not my hoops. You can't have my hoops. But
yeah,
I think that's probably, I would say that that's my biggest takeaway from the military.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing to take away. And then what advice do you think you would give to, like mixed race kids that maybe are going through those similar experiences that you went through as a child who was mixed?
Oh, it gets better. It gets better. I mean, It seems tough now. It seems like you're all alone and you have nobody that understands you. But eventually, as you get older, the world opens up and you'll meet so many people that are so similar to you that you'll be like, where were these people 10, 15 years ago? And then you have these shared experiences and these great bonds and great friendships that are based on just commonalities, things that you can relate to. So it gets better. Don't worry. You may seem like an oddball now, but you probably will turn into that beautiful swan in the near future. And you didn't think that it was possible. So just stay the course. It gets better.
Yep. Is there anything else you want to talk about or mention or anything?
Let's see. Oh, sure. Okay. I have a skincare line coming up. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
Well, it's actually, well, I might as well promote. I'm a terrible salesperson, but I said to myself, okay, you got to promote just a little bit. So I've always had issues with my skin. I've always had pimples. And now, once I had kids, I had the melasma, the hyperpigmentation. Now I'm getting into the phase. So my skin's been through everything. So being a doctor, being someone who's always trying to problem solve, I started a skincare line where I came up with a couple chemical peels. So right now I have 2 chemical peels because I think exfoliation is the key to every beautiful face that you see out there, getting all that dead skin off, and making sure that your products can work well once you do get that dead layer of skin off. So I came up with 2 chemical peels. I have some serums coming out, one for acne, one for hyperpigmentation, and I have a slew of other stuff that I want to come out with that I'm going to slowly kind of bring to market. But it's called Famous AF. That's the name of the brand. You can find it on the website, famousafskin.com. Also, Famous AF Skin is my Instagram handle. So check us out. Support the small business.
Let me let you go. It was
all
nice
right, girl. This was
with
fun.
you. No, of course. Thanks for coming on. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.